And this couple was sitting there, and they cracked open a bottle of champagne, and he was toasting their 50 years together, and I thought, isn't that romantic? How I would love to be 50 years married with my husband. Another 15 years to go. And he says, here's to 50 years of happily married life. And then he says to her, darling, I've never asked you this before, but have you ever cheated on me? And she answered, yes. At this stage, I pushed my chair a little bit backwards. I didn't want to miss anything that he might say. And she said, yes. He says, how many times? She said, 3 times. So this time I was practically sitting on his lap, but he was so engrossed with her conversation he didn't notice because I couldn't miss a word. So he said, well, would you like to tell me about it? She says, well, yes, I will. She said, what was the first time? He says, well, the first time was when your business was failing and you wanted a bank loan, and the bank refused. Well, I went to the bank loan manager, and you know what happened? You got a bank loan. He says, well, darling, I know you did that out of love and affection for me. I forgive you. What was the second time? He said, well, the second time is when you need open heart surgery. And the surgeon scheduled the surgery for another 3 months away, and you were quite sure you were going to die. You were impossible. You were nervous. So I made an appointment with the doctor, and you see what happened. You got surgery scheduled for a week later. And she says, and what was the third time, dear? He said, well, I know you did that, he said, because you loved and you cared for me. He says, that's right. And he says, well, would you like to tell me about the third time? He says, well, the third time is, do you remember when you wanted to join the exclusive golf and country club about 35 years ago? He says, yes, I remember. She said, well, you were short 18 votes. There are couples sitting on the ship. You all know them, but I just can't give them names. You know, I have to protect them. Now, one lady confessed to me about her great desire of wanting to scuba dive. All her life she wanted to scuba dive and never had enough nerve. Oh, hello, Karen.
May I have your attention, please? There are some passengers who disembarked in Aqaba, who arrived back tonight, who have not returned their passports yet. Please return them now, otherwise the ship cannot sail. Anybody who has not returned their passport, please do so now, otherwise the ship cannot sail. Thank you.
All right, you returned your passports? Yep. Because I want to get home tomorrow. Okay, so I was telling you about this woman that wanted to scuba dive. It was her dream. She wasn't young, but in Tahiti she was able to buy some very reasonably priced scuba dive equipment, a mask, a tank, a suit, for around $1,000 and something, and she thought, this is my time, now or never. So she got her first lesson and she went down 10 feet. 20 feet, 30 feet, and she was in awe of all this oceanic life, looking at the corals, looking at the fish. And then she looks down, and she sees 10 feet below her this man swimming in a swimming suit. And she couldn't understand it, so she sends him a note. You know, you have these slates and pencils, and she sent it down, and she said, how is it I have $1,000 worth of equipment, and I'm wearing all these things, and I can only go 30 feet down, and you're 10 feet below me with nothing but a swimming suit on? So the guy gets the note, looks at it, reads it, sends it back up again, and it says, idiot, I'm drowning. But now with the cabins, you know, we've never had any complaints. We've been very fortunate, very happy, and we've been so happy to have been able to do all these wonderful things. I've never had a bad day. Well, maybe talking to Graham Martin might have been a bad day, but that doesn't count, does it? Our cabin never leaked, never flooded, never froze us, never heated us up. It was inside, though. And when they offered us an upgrade, we never took it because we found out how economically beneficial it was to have an indoor cabin. Here we had our built-in darkroom. We could develop our own pictures, right? But our bathroom was something else. I'm telling you, between our sink, the end of the sink and the wall, we might have 12 inches. And every time my husband wanted to pass, it's a wonder I didn't become pregnant, because he kept on bumping into me. I kept on thinking he was going to get wedged in between the two places. But speaking of the bathroom, there's the toilet. The first time I heard the toilet flush, I said, wow, or should we be happy that we don't have the anti-abortion league on ship? They'd shut down those toilets for sure. One day I was in the bathroom around the corner here, you know, the one right across here, and the men go straight and the woman turned to the right. And I came out of my little cubicle, and there's one of our passengers waiting to get in. I can't say his name, so I said to him, Mister, this is for women. And he said to me, and this is not for women? There was this one passenger who shared his story with me on one of the cruises he took. He was with quite a few French passengers, and when he sat down to eat dinner, the passenger beside him said, Bon appetit. So he said, Joe Cohen. The next meal, they sat down to eat, and the passenger said, this Frenchman said, Bon appetit. So this guy said, Joe Cohen. And it happened again the next night. And he got up, he said, something is wrong here. I can't understand what's happening. So what he did was he said, Jesus, this guy keeps on introducing himself. He said, somebody said, you idiot. Bon appetit means have a good appetite. He said, oh, am I ever stupid? So the next meal, this Joe Cohen said, before the Frenchman could open his mouth, he said, Bon appetit. And the Frenchman said, Joe Cohen. Not only that, a true story. Anyhow, have you ever felt the need on this trip, the wish to be bilingual? Have you ever felt frustrated by only knowing one language and wishing you could express yourself in some of these countries to the people you meet? How important it must be. You know, as an English school teacher and as a teacher of English as a second language, I always told this story to my pupils every time I began a new lesson. And that was about the mother cat with the two baby kittens. And when they were out in the yard, and one day a dog approached them. And the kittens got very frightened. The mother cat said, don't worry. And she went up to the dog and she went, bow, wow, wow. The dog ran away. And she went up to her little kitten. She says, you see, my children, how important it is to know two languages? So, and even if you know one language, you don't always understand it. I mean, you know, you've heard of, there was an old Australian who was 90 years old that arrived to Israel, and he met a friend the next day, or an Israeli the next day. And he said to him, did you come here to die? And he says, no, I came here yesterday.
Alan Rockman, take your passport down to the gangway
Alan Rockman, are you here? Are you disturbing my show? Anyhow, and as for the Canadians, we had two Israelis driving across Canada once, and they got lost, and they pulled up into a service station. The woman went out and asked the man, could you please tell us where we are? And he said, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And she got back into the car, and her husband said, where are we? She said, I don't know, dear. He didn't speak English.
Oh, well.
Parker Ellen, please take your passport to the gangway now.
Does Karen hate me?
Take your passport to the gangway now. Thank you.
But it's not enough. It's not really enough to know the other language. You have to know how to pronounce it properly. I always stress to my classes the emphasis on proper pronunciation. And the only way I could ever illustrate that was to tell the story about the Italian who came to Malta. And this is a story in the first person Italian. So he says, I come to Malta and to visit Malta, and I go down to the big hotel, and I go down to breakfast, and I order breakfast, and I tell him I want coffee and 2 pieces of toast, and he only bring me 1 piece of toast, and I tell him I want 2 pieces. He says, go to the toilet. And I says, you no understand, I want to piss on the plate. He says, no, you can't piss on the plate, you dirty son of a bitch. You get out of here. So I go out of there. And I walk around town and I look at everything. And after a while, it's like 1 o'clock, I want to eat. So I go to a big restaurant, I sit down, and the waiter, he bring me a spoon and a knife, but no fork. And I call him and I say, I want a fork. He says, everybody want a fork. I says, you don't understand. I want a fork on the table. He says, you don't fork on the table, you dirty son of a bitch. You get out of here. So I go out and I go to my hotel. I go to the hotel and I go to my room and I want to sleep. But I see I got a pillow and a big pillow and a blanket, but I don't have, there's no shit. So I phone up and I say, I want to shit. He says, go to the toilet. I says, no, you don't understand. I want to shit on my bed. He says, no, you can't shit on your bed, you son of a bitch. So I take my suitcase and I go back to Italy and I go downstairs and the man says to me, he says it to me like this. He says, piss on you. And I says, piss on you too, you son of a bitch. I'm going back to Israel. To Italy. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Libby Spiro, our very own Joan Rivers. Libby, come on back. Take a bow, Libby. You didn't tell me you were going to be X-rated. Thank you so much. One more round of applause. Now that you're supposed to go backstage and act like a star. You're doing well. Thank you so much for coming. Just a couple announcements. Tomorrow, all the